Newsy news. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. My name is Onepeg, and in today's video, we're going to talk about a whole lot of key changes. Now, there's a lot of information here, a massive, massive list. If you guys want to review this, you can find it over at Tarkov-changes.com, where my boy Logical Solutions put together all of this information for all of y'all to review if you want to. But I'm going to go through it with you because I think it's important, and I want to give you guys an idea of what to expect. Oh, and as a quick update, I forgot to mention in my last news video with all of the armor changes and whatnot, the wrist T helmet and the Alton have also been removed from the loot pool. You can still get an Alton off of things like guards, but unfortunately, the wrist T does not drop off of any AI or anything like that right now. You can get the face shield, but you can't get the actual helmet. It doesn't drop anywhere. As I'm scrolling down, you can see a massive, massive list of keys. Now, the rule of thumb here is if the key was considered like a throwaway, like the SMW car key or something like a safe key for the radar or power substation utility cabin key, most of those have had their value significantly decreased. So that way, if you're trying to sell them off to vendors because you're finding trash keys, you're going to get a lot less for them than you used to. The other keys, things that did have uses, things that were located behind loot rooms, if they were severely undervalued, they got really punched up in value. Other stuff like the operating room key, for instance, had its value significantly decreased, which I'm not exactly sure why they would do something like this, because this key usually shows up as a barter-only item because it's in demand for tasks. So I'm not really sure what the deal with this was. If the key is in high demand, like it's a good loot room or a place where people are getting a lot of stuff, like a marked key, for instance, they were all changed to like 250K as a base item value. So now you're not able to just put up whatever for a marked key, although customs marked is still 500,000. Along with this were two other relatively major changes. The first one is that the keys like the Skybridge key and other single-use keys that are used for tasks specifically that BSG has added to the game or modified, like the Unknown key, for instance, and the Machinery key, along with the Skybridge key, you'll notice that this says this item can no longer be sold at the flea market. So all of the one-to-one use keys that were at one time things that you could list, which you can actually go and look at right now. For instance, you have all of these old offers that are all timing out now. There are a few other keys straggling around that are still on timer, but once they are timed out, that's it. You can no longer list those keys on the flea. One other thing that has changed has been colored backgrounds. So every item in the game has a colored background behind it pretty much. And we can kind of differentiate between what each type of item is depending on what the colored background is and rarity and stuff like that. In the case of exit keys, like the factory key, ZB14, 21SR, stuff like that, they all have their background colors now changed to this greenish hue instead. Lastly, it also seems like BSG is trying to brush up on rarity indicators with these backgrounds. A lot of the keys either had their colors changed from violet to blue, I guess denoting a lesser level of rarity, and some of them were increased to purple or violet from blue. So things like the radar station commandant key, the conference room key, the operating room key, they all had their backgrounds shifted to a violet. Whereas stuff like RBOB, RBGN, RBKSM, those all had their colors shifted to blue. The biggest takeaways that I can see from this list are things like the marked room keys that aren't the customs marked all had their values increased to 250,000. And the factory marked key went from a 55K base item value to a 250K base item value, which obviously makes the factory marked key significantly more valuable than what it used to be, and ends up meaning that the listings that are going on the flea are going to be forcibly higher than what they were before, which is true in a few different instances. So if this is something that interests you, go take a look at the list. Probably should pay attention to what the fees are for selling items that you had been used to selling. If I were also you, I would check and see what vendors are willing to pay for keys now, because it looks like an awful lot of them, especially if they were reserve related, all got modified in terms of like how much value they're worth now. And you wouldn't want to sell something either for too much or too little versus what the game is saying that their base item was worth now. Anyway, guys, that's what I have for this one. Thanks so much for coming and checking it out. If you would be so kind as to follow me on my socials at OnePegMG on Twitter, at OnePeg on TikTok. As always, you can find me live at twitch.tv/OnePeg between 7 and 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until whenever. And if you would be so kind as to sub the channel here, I would be incredibly appreciative. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.